For 1,000 years, no army on earth could take this city. Empires had risen and fallen around it. Armies had come and died beneath its walls. It was the richest, most defended city the world had ever known, the last living piece of the Roman Empire. And in the spring of 1453, in just 53 days, it fell forever. This is the story of the last Romans, and the morning their 1,000-year world came to an end. The city was Constantinople. For more than 11 centuries it had been the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, the heir of Rome itself. Its people still called themselves Romans. But by 1453, the empire was a shadow. Once it had stretched across 3 continents. Now it was little more than the city itself, a single great metropolis surrounded by enemies on every side. The emperor ruled almost nothing beyond his own walls. And yet the walls still stood, and the walls were the point. The Theodosian Walls of Constantinople were the most formidable fortifications ever built in the ancient or medieval world. A triple line of ramparts and towers and a deep moat, stretching across the entire landward side of the city. For 1,000 years they had turned back every invader. Persians, Avars, Arabs, Bulgars, Rus, all had broken against these walls and failed. As long as the walls held, the Romans believed the city could not die. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Their enemy was a young man of 21 named Mehmed II, Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. Mehmed was not content to rule around Constantinople as his ancestors had. He wanted the city itself. He was brilliant, ruthless, and obsessed. And he had brought something the old walls had never faced. He had brought cannon. Enormous bronze guns, the largest the world had yet seen, capable of throwing stone balls weighing half a ton. The 1,000-year walls had been built for a world before gunpowder. That world was ending. In April of 1453, the Ottoman army arrived. Estimates vary, but Mehmed commanded perhaps 80,000 men or more. To defend the entire city, the Emperor Constantine XI had fewer than 8,000. The odds were almost beyond belief, 10 to 1, perhaps worse. The emperor sent desperate pleas to the kings of Europe, to the Pope, to Venice and Genoa. A handful of brave foreigners came. The rest of Christendom sent prayers and stayed home. Constantine would face the largest army in the world with a few thousand men and the walls of his ancestors. Mehmed surrounded the city by land and his guns began to roar. Day after day the great cannon battered the ancient walls. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the walls began to crack. Each night the defenders worked by torchlight to repair the breaches with rubble and timber and barrels of earth. Each day the guns tore them open again. It became a race, the cannon against the courage of a few thousand exhausted men. And still, somehow, the city held. The sea was supposed to be the city's salvation. Constantinople sat on a peninsula, and its harbor, the Golden Horn, was protected by a massive iron chain stretched across its mouth. No fleet could enter. As long as that chain held, the sea walls were safe and the defenders could concentrate on the land. But Mehmed did the impossible. In a single night, he had his men drag dozens of ships overland, on greased wooden rollers, across a hill and down into the Golden Horn behind the chain. The defenders woke to find an enemy fleet inside their own harbor. Now they had to guard the sea walls too, and they had no men to spare. The siege ground on through May. The defenders were starving, sleepless, and dying, with no hope of rescue. Constantine refused every offer to surrender and flee. He would not be the emperor who abandoned the city of the Romans. On the night of May the 28th, in the great church of Hagia Sophia, Romans and foreigners, Orthodox and Catholic, set aside the divisions that had haunted them and prayed together one last time. Then the emperor rode out to the walls to wait for the final assault. He knew it was coming. He knew what it meant. It came in the darkness before dawn on May the 29th. Mehmed threw everything he had at the walls in wave after wave. First the irregulars to wear the defenders down. Then his seasoned troops. And finally, his elite, the Janissaries. The defenders, outnumbered 10 to 1, fought them off again and again through the night. And then, 2 small things went wrong, as they so often do at the end of empires. A sally port, a small gate, was left unlocked, and the brilliant Genoese commander defending a key section was gravely wounded and carried from the walls, and his men, seeing him fall, began to waver. The Ottomans poured through the breach. Their banners rose over the towers. The cry went up that the city was taken, and panic swept the defenders. In those final moments, the last emperor of Rome did the only thing left to a man like him. Constantine XI tore off the imperial insignia that marked him as emperor, drew his sword, and charged into the oncoming enemy as an ordinary soldier. He was never seen again. No one knows for certain how or where he died, somewhere in the chaos at the walls, the last Roman emperor, fighting on foot among his men. After 1100 years, the line of Roman emperors ended in an unmarked death in a breach in the wall. By the afternoon, it was over. Mehmed, just 21 years old, rode through the gates of the city that no one had taken in 1,000 years. He went to Hagia Sophia, the greatest church in Christendom, and ordered it turned into a mosque. The Roman Empire, which had begun with Augustus 15 centuries before, was finally, truly dead. Constantinople was now Istanbul, and it would be the capital of the Ottomans for the next 450 years. The Romans had everything. The strongest walls ever built, 1,000 years of victories, a city that had outlasted every enemy and every age. They lost it all in 53 days, to a younger empire that understood something they did not, that the world had changed, that walls, which had never failed, could be made obsolete in an afternoon by a new and terrible idea. Constantine could have fled. He could have lived. He chose to die at the walls with the last of the Romans, defending a world that was already gone. For 1,000 years, the city never fell. Then one morning it did, and an empire that had lasted since the dawn of the Roman world died with it. They had outlasted everyone. In the end, time outlasted them. The losing side.